Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What's going on, everybody? Gotta love a good tech issue. My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by the good old FGFantasyGuru.com. For the next little bit, I'm going to be talking a lot of sports with all of you. Going to be talking a little bit of football and also some basketball. Rich Maletto from FantasyGuru.com is going to stop by, so make sure you get ready. Let me tell you what we have going on the site. We've got right now, as you know, all for just $99 because you know this stream is for free for all of you. It's kind of our extension from FantasyGuru.com to tell you what we have coming up on the site. Right now, for those looking to get involved with what we have cooking at Fantasy Guru, you can go at support@FantasyGuru.com to sign up for the all-in NFL for the rest of the season. $99, as you see right there. Support at FantasyGuru.com to get involved. You get everything that we have to offer. Remainder season-long content. If you're out of your season-long leagues, that's okay. We've got DFS content for you too, and betting, all Discord access so you can get help and understand the game of football, because us at the site, it's more than just picks and plays. We want you to understand the game, how we see it, so you can win yourselves too. Speaking of the technical issues, I am seeing I'm a little bit choppy here. Wi-Fi keeps interfering, but we're just going to roll with what we can because that's how we do things here. As you know by now, and I'm going to look to bring this up here live in living color here, you know that we do not only football, but Wednesdays are big time basketball day. So with that right here, let me show you what we have going on here for today's show. Going to talk streamers, going to talk week 11 with Rich Maletto, and then I'm going to talk with him about who we should be looking to potentially get rid of on our fantasy football teams and who we should be looking to keep, be patient with, keep on our bench as a stash. Big time popular pickup. Sean Tucker going to talk with Rich about that. Again, to get involved, everything that we offer, season long, betting, DFS, you know where to go, FantasyGuru.com. Support at FantasyGuru.com to sign up. $100 for everything that we offer. Extend your season. So let's talk a little bit of basketball, because what I've got going on, as you know, I head up our NBA content at the site. A big-time split slate that we have going on for NBA, including 12 games on FanDuel, just 9 on DraftKings. And for those that are just getting into DFS NBA, that's pretty much what's been going on throughout the season and even last year too. But this year especially, even on the shorter slates, we are getting some of those split slates. And that's because DraftKings wants to take care of the early East Coasters out there and isolate a separate night slate for the West Coast audience. And as for the DraftKings contingent and the FanDuel contingent, FanDuel wants to include everything. It makes these slates unique, and it makes them very, very different from each other, especially when you've got someone like a Nikola Jokic that's on FanDuel's main slate, but not DraftKings. Now, what do I do? Because maybe you aren't part of FantasyGuru.com, and for those that want to get involved, I just mentioned football, but on the basketball side of things and our other sports too, including hockey and everything that we have to offer from MMA and so on and so forth. If you want to get involved with everything that we have to offer, besides football, besides baseball, Those are separate. The MVP plan is for you, hot and heavy in hockey and NBA. You get the betting, you get the DFS that we have to offer too. Even a few of you have been asking me some season-long fantasy basketball questions in our DFS NBA and NBA betting Discord channels. So with that, you get a little season-long content too for all of you. And as you see right here, I'll bring this up. If you look at the bottom, Watch Along Wednesday. It's another way for all of you to be able to understand the game of basketball. It's kind of like my office hours. And the reason why I do it is because for those out there, and I see a lot of people that comment about those consumers out there of those fantasy sites and everything that, oh, they're just giving picks and they don't care. We freaking care at fantasyguru.com. And that's what Watch Along Wednesday is based on. You're having trouble setting DFS lineups. You're having trouble understanding the picks. Well, right before the slate starts isn't the time to ask me that in Discord. Oh, I'm just not getting it. This, that. Stay after the game's locked. Then you can ask me and we can talk all about different strategies for all of you with NBA, which teams to maybe stay away from, how to deal with ownership. As you know, it's a big part of what we're doing this year. We're trying to become a little bit more unique with our lineup builds. Not always go after the new hot commodity of the night. And for instance, tonight on tonight's NBA slate, you know that the Cleveland Cavaliers already have ruled out about 60% of their team. A lot of their big names are out tonight outside of Jared Allen, DeAndre Hunter. But the bigger thing regarding this is it's against the Heat, who they just played. And even though it's against the Heat and the familiarity is there, the pace-up spot and the fast-paced nature of this game, because the Heat have been running so quickly, keeps us in on some of those value plays. But sometimes we have strong plays that we stay on even when more value opens up. The other night, I was asked, I had Cade Cunningham in my core four. And I was asked by everyone under the sun, Fensty, all this guard value opened up. Should we go? Should we go? Should we go? The Cade matchup was awesome. And yeah, I didn't think that he'd go nuclear like he did to the point that he did, but still thinking he'd get that 5x value. We were still looking at a potential 60-plus point night because he was facing Washington. They play fast and they don't play defense. And let's not forget that multiple forwards, offensive and defensive specific forwards, were out for Detroit, and they're still out for Detroit, and that's where we got to look to take advantage. Detroit has Chicago tonight, second highest total on the board, and so we're going to be back looking there. However, piece of news just broke that I got to tell you about, and that's right now we're looking at shoot-around for Detroit. No Cade Cunningham, who's questionable, and Jalen Duren, who we thought was all good to go, not in shooting round, so all of a sudden those guys in jeopardy of not playing. So because of that, we're going to have to figure out who on Detroit we're going to go after here. The Bulls defense isn't the same Bulls defense we saw in week 1 and week 2 of the season. They've collapsed in a big way, and they play fast, which makes them very, very vulnerable at this point. So some of the players that we're going to be looking at here that can help us and get us that multi-category production. Yes, we're going to be looking at the Ron Hollands of the world who really let us down the other night. Javonte Green, someone we're going to be looking at. Paul Reed, a nice cheapy option for sub 4K on DK. And a lot of people are going to be looking at Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert tonight, which they're both low-valued options. This is if, by the way, we get the confirmation that Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren are out of this game. We already don't have Asar Thompson. We don't have Tobias Harris. Isaiah Stewart currently doubtful at this point. So these are areas where we're going to be able to take advantage of value tonight. Detroit and the Cleveland Cavaliers. From the Cleveland side of it, with no Darius Garland, someone that we can look at, he's not going to be getting a lot of minutes, even with the players playing tonight. But can I see Lonzo Ball playing about 25 minutes tonight? Yes, I can. Can I see Lonzo Ball volume producing us a nice 23 to 25 points in 25 minutes because of his ability to rebound, his ability to hit players very well on the pass? very high IQ. Don't forget, the Ball brothers are awesome at basketball, but they understand the game, even LaMelo too. But Lonzo has very high basketball IQ, so he's going to be running the point a decent amount. Remember, no Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland, so they're going to need other players like Ball, Porter. These guys are going to have to help out, and we're going to be able to rely on them because the matchup is very appealing. If they were facing the Thunder, let's just say, then maybe I'd pick one and that's it. Whoever has the best to hit their ceiling. But here in this game, they're facing a very quick Miami Heat team, and that's where we can take advantage. And they're still missing guys in the post like Bam Adebayo on the other side. So we've seen Jaime Jaquez, someone who's become very interesting, as you see here on the list, someone who's become very interesting. And that's someone who, with Bam Adebayo out, we've seen him spend more time with the ball and certainly make more plays with the ball. At first, I thought Jaime Jaquez was a beneficiary when Norman Powell was dealing with his injuries. But then when Bam went out, Jaime was still producing, and there's a correlation there. Remember, Bam Adebayo is a very good ball handler, and he can bring up the ball himself. That takes away usage from everybody else right there, and still no Tyler Hero. So there's openness right here, and that's where Jaime Jaquez, and the price reflects it, but that's where we can go to look tonight, because it's going to literally be, when it comes to this Cavs team, the Jared Allen show, who he's going to be chalk as hell, but that's chalk that we're going to likely eat tonight. Because unless I can think about cheaper centers, and if we're not going to be building around, and I'm looking at my write-up right now that will come out a little bit later on the site. The write-up will come out. I'll be in Discord from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, and then watch along Wednesday from about, I have to run an errand tonight, 7:15 p.m. Eastern until about 9 p.m. Eastern. And outside of that, we relied on Neemias Queta last night. He's in play again. But beyond him, especially if Jalen Duren, who I've loved that mid-price that we've gotten, if he sits, then we're going to be looking at guys like Paul Reed and Jared Allen to be safe. We've been going in our cores a lot of double center because the center has been very, very cheap. And those guys, it's not just the scoring, they rebound too. So the volume production potential is there. And Detroit just has a lot of guys out. And we've seen some of those end of the rotation guys for the Pistons, for instance, the other night, come through. So these are areas that we can look to trust tonight. Remember, it's not always about who's starting. There are placeholders that just start because there are certain players that are better off the bench. Why burn, especially you have an injury, why burn necessarily your best player in the second unit if you don't have to? Let someone go out there, be the sacrificial lamb, play about, 7 minutes or so, and then you bring in the better guy off the bench and you outspeed the first unit before they get put out of the game, and then the second unit comes in and they're able to thrive. So we got to be careful of that. It's one thing if they're proven, but it's quite another if it's a no-name guy or a guy we rarely ever use and they're starting. These situations, they don't apply because you've got multiple players on the Cavs and the Pistons out tonight. But it's really looking like Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, for that matter, are going to sit. Pretty much most of their forwards are out at this point. And we're going to be looking there. So it's going to be a lot of, I can already tell, big-time stars and scrubs night. Other players and situations that we are on the lookout for tonight, some of the big injuries include Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis. The Dallas situation I'm keeping on careful watch tonight because if both of them sit, Daniel Gafford becomes something. But then the Suns become more interesting on the other side of the ball. Don't sleep on the Suns defense because they've been playing pretty good defense over the last couple of weeks here. So I'm not going to go crazy when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, especially if Anthony Davis is once again out. But Daniel Gafford, again, another guy who get us that 5X mark, doesn't even need that 30 minutes to do so. If Lively and Davis sit again, then he's primed at that point. Other games that I have interest in, I talked about the Pistons Bulls and the nature of the fast pace with that one. The Rockets tonight are a 16.5 point favorite. So immediately I see that, and we all see that, and you think, well, we should look to fade everyone. But here's kind of the attitude I'm taking. There's going to be a reason that they're up 16 and a half points. Is it Kevin Durant at 8K? He's going to be in the write-up, but he's going to be more of a GPP. If anything, a guy that has multi-category production potential in Amen Thompson, a little bit cheaper, that's someone that I'd rather mess with, and I think has a better chance of staying in the game longer than Kevin Durant. And that's the direction I go. If you want to go Şengün, and he's going to be in that write-up, especially with what we're dealing with now, then yes, you're going to have to hope that, and it's a major pace-up spot. So he can still hit value even if he loses a few minutes due to what's expected to be a blowout, because the Wizards can't defend anyone, especially a lineup with a bunch of 6'8+ guys in it. So that's going to be a tough matchup for them. But that's where we can maybe look to their bench a little bit, the Rockets, and look at some of their other pieces like Atari Easton if he gets any more minutes. But some of those other bigger names there with Alper and Şengün, am I coring it around him? It seems like it's way too risky. This matchup just looks bad. Watching the Rockets play, the Wizards, they're going to have to shoot 75% or hope the Rockets are shooting 20%, 30% most of the game and missing all of their shots. So that's where we have to be careful with that game. But there's still ways that they can dominate. And I think the safest option via the price point, ball control and all, I think is Amen Thompson. And that's someone that's going to be popular, especially now with it looking like Cade Cunningham isn't going to play. Other games that we're going to be looking at tonight, some of the higher totals too, the Hawks and the Kings. Whenever the Kings are on the slate, I like to attack them because their defense is pretty lousy overall. And Atlanta, I mean, they're still dealing with TreVeyon being out. We'll have to see if NAW, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, ends up playing. But I'll say this, Jalen Johnson is looking good for this game tonight. He's looking like he's going to be in a very good spot. And with the Kings' lack of weapons up front, he should be able to get inside and spend time running the point too. So that's someone that we're going to be monitoring, and that's someone that we're going to be looking at for tonight's action. Haven't decided how I'm handling the rest of Atlanta just yet, because naturally in this matchup too, and by the way, when I say this is mainly for you guys. Mainly it is, unless you play the slate, the short slate on DraftKings. This is the game that's specifically on FanDuel tonight. And this is why it's going to be probably a little bit different in the core fours, because you've got Jokic, and we have to decide, are we going to Jokic or not? Because we just lost a 10K plus player in Cade. Likely, he could still play. So we have to decide on that on FanDuel. The other games on FanDuel, by the way, the Lakers and the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic, that one makes me a little bit nervous because both of those guys are very good defenders. Naturally, I feel like in this one, I probably favor SGA a little bit more, but the returns just haven't been there. So I'm probably looking to stay away from most of that situation. If anything, if I'm going to go and attack the Thunder, I'd rather do it with Austin Reeves than I would with Luka Doncic at this point, and save some money and hope that that SGA Doncic matchup is locked in, which it should be, and maybe Reeves gets a little bit of an easier matchup, but the Thunder play great defense. So also we'll have to be on Jalen Williams watch too. So there's that we're going to have to be looking at. Other games that we're going to be watching for the Celtics and the Grizzlies tonight, because with the Celtics and the Grizzlies, I like to attack Memphis. Memphis does not look great. They don't have a lot of firepower. They certainly don't have a lot of defense up front. You saw the Knicks kind of toying with them, and while Boston is missing Jason Tatum, tonight's a good get-right night and get back in the game night for Jaylen Brown, who got off to a horrendous start yesterday. I think in this matchup, he's going to fare better, and plus the pace works very, very much in favor of Boston. Whereas last night with Boston and Philly, we were taking advantage of the bad matchup. This time, we're taking advantage of the good matchup of a poor defense. This time, we're taking advantage of a great matchup versus a weaker defense and a team that moves quicker. I like that better for Jaylen Brown tonight because he figured it out and picked it up towards the end. But for a while in that game, he was not hitting anything against the Sixers. Tonight, I feel like it's going to be different. And a lot of people shy away from players because of back-to-back natures. This is one of those situations where, despite it being a back-to-back, unless obviously he's ruled out or suddenly becomes questionable in the next little bit, I like the pace. I like the game flow. That's why I'm going to go back to Jaylen Brown, and a lot of people are probably going to be off of him. On the Celtics, while we're talking about them, Neemias Queta against weaker front courts is always someone that we should be looking at and watching. But Derek White, after having a very cold shooting first few weeks, he's starting to heat up a little bit more, and we're starting to see the returns of that 5X mark, which we want to hit. For those that maybe aren't familiar with the vernacular for DFS NBA, when I say I want the 5X, I want at least, especially with the core play, with any play I write up, but especially with those core plays, I want that minimum 5X return. That to me is a win on the play. And so I will always say things like, I'm looking for 5X. All right, I think this guy could get 4 to 5X value tonight. And that's fine. You need some guys that have higher floors that you know are going to get us there. That's why I feel like in DFS NBA, there's so much focus on ceiling that's why on nights like the other night, I stuck with Cade Cunningham against the Wizards because, yeah, that was a double-digit spread, but maybe the Wizards had a chance to not be down by 25 the entire game because the Pistons were missing multiple players and good defenders too. And that changed up the strategy a little bit. And I thought that Alex Sarr would have a little bit of an easier job. So that's why, for me, even when that guard value opens up, let's say, I'm still going to stick to the high-priced player. I've been going with a lot of stars and scrub builds, and that's been having a little bit more of a success for me and helping me create more unique lineups, taking ownership into account a little bit more, which I didn't really do as much last year. I did it last year, but I was still more in that cash game mindset. This year, I'm more in a GPP mindset. Even in certain cash contests, I am still in that GPP mindset. The other games that we're going to be watching for, the Magic and the Knicks, I almost want no part of it. I'm going to write up some plays that have been coming through on value, but the Magic have changed a little bit. And for those that are wondering, with Paolo Banchero, by the way, am I going to be putting up his betting prop tonight? Because it's been such a freaking money machine for us, Paolo Banchero. I'm going to chill out tonight and hope that Paolo Banchero doesn't grab 9 to 10 boards because that will keep the prop down for his next game. So I'm probably off of that one tonight. If there's anyone that we can look at, the final game I'm going to preview, and then Rich Maletto is going to stop by from fantasyguru.com. We're going to flip it to football. I'm going to show you our NBA tools too for this reason. But the Bucks-Hornets game, there is some sneakiness to it. I like it. I like it especially from the Hornets side because LaMelo Ball is not going to play once again. Brandon Miller is still out. And this should have a very nice quick flow to it. And if Giannis sits, then I'm looking at more of the Charlotte bigs. You can look at Big Moose Diabate. You can look at Ryan Kalkbrenner. And you can look at, even though he's priced up, but he's been coming through, you can look at Miles Bridges. But if Giannis plays, I'm probably not looking at Bridges as much, more of a GPP only, if that. On the other side of that matchup, I mean, am I still looking at guys like Trey Mann, for instance? Yeah, and Colin Sexton? Yeah, but those guys, if anything, the most attractive player to me, price point-wise and role-wise with no LaMelo Ball, and we've seen him crush it again and again, is Knueppel. Remember, this guy was one of the top draft picks for a reason. They view him as a future piece. And to see everything this guy can do, I'll be honest with all of you, what we're seeing Knueppel do right now is what I thought we'd be seeing Matas Buzelis do for the Bulls. Buzelis has had some good moments, but he's been very up and down. What Knueppel has done since LaMelo Ball's gone down is show what he can do, not only scoring, but also on the glass, also in other areas. He could bring up the ball. Watched him a lot at Duke last year, and he's a jack of all trades. And I like that. And if he's going to remain in this price range that he's been in, then we're going to keep going after him while LaMelo Ball's been out. And the Bucks defense isn't that great. That's the big thing. He should be able to get by the Bucks. And so for me, seeing Knueppel grab 8+ rebounds, 2 double-doubles in his last 3 games, taking a lot more shots, shooting really well for the most part. But see, he could be taking close to 20 shots in this game tonight. And Giannis is going to be on Miles Bridges. So that leaves what? Kyle Kuzma for Knueppel? Yes, please. Yes, please. Knueppel will be a major part of my article tonight because I like the matchup against the Bucks. I'm not as scared of the Bucks as I used to be. A little bit more up front because Miles Bridges can move, or rather Miles Turner can move. But backcourt, midcourt, I'm good. I'm good. I'll attack Rollins every single time. Whoever they put back there on a given night, I have no problem attacking the Milwaukee Bucks. It's not hard to do. Seriously, it's very not hard to do. What's going on, everybody out there? What's going on, the doc? What's going on, Seaweed? How's everyone? Thank you so much again for tuning in. Everyone want to say hello to you. Want to say hello to also, hey, Urbat. Kind of have nicknames there. Urbat. Hey, yo. Love that very much. Let me show you this very quickly before we get Rich Maletto on the Fantasy Bosco, because I was trying to get to a point of our tools at fantasyguru.com. Let's see, because I had to refresh the screen here. Let's see if I can bring this up. Boom, here we go. On the fly. This is how we do it. Montel Jordan style. Our NBA tools, because a lot of you are asking me about certain things like ownership and where we can find certain things. I don't know how much of you know this, but we actually have a set of advanced tools at fantasyguru.com, not only for basketball, but for other sports too. In fact, if you go to our data section, you'll see it for NBA, NFL, and even in season MLB. And so these tools right here all update automatically except for one. And that's the one you see under the dotted line, which is if you go to our data section at fantasyguru.com and you look at the right side, you'll see a tab DFS projections and ownership under the data NBA tab. So that has ownership, yes. But that is the one little area we're trying to improve at fantasyguru.com. We're trying to set up a new page that has updated ownership projections. But if that one, for some reason, because as you know, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but as you know, everything breaks because we're very football focused there. That's where we want to make sure everything's working there. But we are on it. Our tech department is on it. We are going to try to create a page that updates those ownership projections. However, if you're just looking for DFS projections that update automatically, right under that tab, again, this is fantasyguru.com, data, NBA. On the right side, right under DFS projections and ownership, you'll see DFS player AI projections. And that is our boss, CEO, Rob Break, the model. Those are his projections from his model that update automatically. And that should help you out a little bit when it comes to projections. And something else I got to tell you about when it comes to who has a bigger production ceiling based on changes that also updates automatically. You can find the projections in the Delta Force tool that we have. fantasyguru.com, data, NBA, and that first column all the way at the bottom under NBA props, Delta Force. What does that do? That projects who has the biggest ceilings on the night. That one updates automatically. The DFS player AI projections, the one that says beta at the end, that one updates automatically. Our NBA totals for those that are looking to bet, because I've been getting questions from some of you in Discord about, do you only do props? Do you do over-unders, and do you do games? Well, number one, I'm one guy, so whatever I see that works. The other night, we had Phoenix with the spread. We hit that. But mainly, I stick to NBA props. But if you're looking for totals, there's an NBA totals tab. And with the NBA totals tab, that tab will tell you what our projections are for the game. And if you're looking for a game to bet an over or an under on, you're looking for a 4% difference. And that right there, the 4% edge, at least 4%, that will give you a good enough indicator whether or not you bet the over or under. But I would check back on those as close to game time as possible, because you just don't know who's going to be in, who's going to be out. We're at that point right now. Other tools that we have an NBA props tool that also right now. So you're able to essentially look at that, the data section and the NBA section. Again, I don't know what's going on with my internet. It's never been this patchy before, but the show rolls on. We march through. We welcome someone who might even have to host this if I get kicked off here. But Rich Maletto from FantasyGuru.com. Rich, you're saying you're a mess. Let me tell you something, man. I'm a mess today, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I for once, it's not my internet, apparently, man. So dude, lately we got a bunch of the housework done, but I still got to reach out to the new internet people because I'm pretty sure they destroyed a good chunk of my sprinkler system. So that's awesome.
Jeez. Never mind my problems. This is Rich Maletto right here. Make sure you don't follow him on X at Fantasy Bosco, but make sure you catch all of his content at fantasyguru.com. Rich, let's start here, man. When it comes to the Giants offense here, we're getting the reporting they're coming off firing of their coach, which we know there's some numbers behind that, how teams tend to get up after their coaches, the game after the coach gets fired and all. But also, they're dealing with another situation, and that's with Jackson Dart and concussion. So now, according to reports we've seen, it's going to be Jameis, Winston here. How does that make you feel about the Giants offense heading in?
Well, I was worried about using Theo Johnson, and now I'm all for it. I will say this. I wanted to put Winston in the quarterback streaming conversation, and he's probably still worthwhile to be in that conversation. But the one aspect of the Packers team that seems to have been playing well consistently, it's the defense. So I do worry about this matchup. The Giants just looked like a whole different team with Dart. I think Winston can bring that same kind of pop. I don't think Wilson ever did. So, but is Slayton dinged up? That's going to be a problem. Otherwise, I expect a big game from Slayton. You know, Winston's never really been that guy to lean on that slot receiver and be the accurate timing guy. He's more been, remember Brashard Perryman a couple of years ago, just ate with Winston under center. So I feel like the Giants need to get a little healthier before we can embrace Winston fully, especially against this matchup. But look, Winston is fun to watch, man. That man took me to my first championship in my home league that I had been snake bitten in for the longest time. So, I'm all for Winston getting a shot here. I do not know why Wilson was constantly the QB2. Maybe that played into Daboll's firing. I don't know, because, the whole thing with Daboll was what he did with Josh Allen. So, did that play a little bit into what we got out of Jackson Dart? I don't know. Look, the Giants have played somewhat inspiring football the last 3 weeks. They shouldn't have lost last week. They shouldn't have lost the previous game where they had the lead. This seems to be an ongoing problem. Maybe that changes now with the interim coach, but I'm kind of treading lightly here. I want to see how they look against a good Packer defense.
Rich, what do you have coming up at fantasyguru.com, just so everybody, because, I talk on Wednesdays now a lot of basketball, but then you join me to talk football. So on a per week basis, what do you have coming up at the site for the remainder of the NFL season?
So I'll do buy, sell, cut. That drops every Tuesday. I do recommend, I was talking with Russ about this. Russ does, really it's a conglomerate with Tyler, me, Armando, Russ, a trending article. This trending article goes back before any of us were at Fantasy Guru, right? But I recommend checking that out. It gives you a perspective from multiple different people, gives you some insight to the things that happen in the game. The box scores can often be misleading, so check that out. I know it's a little bit longer of a read, but check that out. I do buy, sell, cut, comes out Tuesday. The streaming article, which I normally give you ahead of time, Finsty, I'm behind today. My apologies. That comes out on Wednesdays. Might be a little later than normal this week. And then the start sit article, which I'll be transparent. The start sit article is based on Jeff's rankings. I do tweak a few things based on my leans. I love to go back and see if my leans match up with Jeff's final rankings. There are often times that you'd be surprised. Jeff and I are on the same page anyway. So there is that, but feel free to always use the rankings. And like I said, I'll be transparent. My start sit article is based on Jeff's rankings, and I make no bones about that.
And Ray Flowers, by the way, someone else like you, very into like the Discord question answering in our Discord for football. He's like that too. Guys, we're all watching Jeff Manns' rankings, and you are too. And it's funny because, yes, Discord, I know, takes on a life of its own with all the conversations that we have going on and everything like that. But remember, we've got content on the site too. And a lot of that, and that's why Jeff puts out his rankings as early as he does, and a lot of our content, so we can make sure we stay consistent with those rankings. Then that is why we stick with going through Jeff's rankings. And outside of unforeseen injuries and everything like that, then that's why we need to make sure we stay consistent here. Here's something interesting. Work and Grind, who I've known for a little bit here. He says this: do rankings feel too impersonal? That's why people could know the rankings are just spitballing. The thing is, here's the thing with the rankings. With a guy like Jeff, I know Jeff is watching a lot of tape. And that's what we do when we pride ourselves on at Fantasy Guru. And that's the thing. Rich, I don't think there's anything personal about them. I think that Jeff just is someone who's a bit more of a tapeworm. And if he sees an edge, he's going to get it versus someone who might see someone who's getting more targets over a certain week span. Jeff will know why that's the case with the offensive setup. And that's why for Jeff, I trust those rankings because I know it's what he's seeing on the field.
He puts a lot of work into them. And I appreciate where Work and Grind is coming from because I think he's kind of onto something. Except I guess I need to say this. You shouldn't be expecting personal handheld content from us. If the rankings feel too impersonal, that's fine. They're not meant to be personal, but if the expectation is, and I had this conversation with someone in Discord because they were wearing me out. And I said, bro, I feel like you're double checking every decision with us. Yeah, I kind of am. Don't. You can't do that. Here's the thing. If you're playing fantasy football just to win, then you're not doing it to enjoy the game of football and to enjoy a challenge. Every game, everything I've ever done, whether it's been swimming, football, basketball, PlayStation, debates, whatever it is, the fun is the challenge. I think I'm better at something than you. So let's put a little money where my mouth is, or let's put a little skin in the game. And that's what it is. I find it interesting. People are always like, well, they're next to each other in the rankings. That just means that it's a coin flip. And Jeff's leans are already in the rankings. Why do they need us to go back and retype that again or state that a second time? People are like, well, I want your leans, Rich. My leans are in the start sit article. And I'll be completely frank. I get very insulted when you ask me that and you haven't even looked at the article. And now, if you want to say, well, my scoring format's a little different, that's fine. But I'll tell you how I do things. I do more depth charts. Maybe I have overlap of players among the 12 different leagues I'm in. So if guys are close and I know I'm splitting hairs or I'm doing coin flips, I don't want to be overexposed. So even though I have Alec Pierce over Alec Aomanor in all my articles and all my listings, they're close. They're in the same tier. So if I have 4 leagues where I have both of them, guess what? I'm not playing the same guy in all 4 leagues. I'll probably split it. And I'll probably split it depending on who my quarterback is, what are my other options, is it more of a floor or ceiling play I need, am I going against some Titans, what can I do to my matchups to make the game a little more interesting or fun based on the head-to-head. There's a lot of nuances that you can use. There is no right or wrong answer. And the frustration from my perspective is we are not your Google assistants, your search assistants, and your rehashing of the articles. The excuse of, well, I'm busy. I'm busy. Fensty is busy. Jeff is busy. Nowhere does your $50 membership for a season guarantee you handheld support of us being a co-manager for you. And that's how it comes across. And I know people get mad at me, but if you want truly advice, you should ask, hey, when they're next to each other in the rankings, what's your thought process and how you play them? And I'll be more than happy to tell them. It kind of depends on my lineups. Do I have these 2 guys in more than one league? If I do, easy. I'm splitting up the usage. If I don't, all right, this is how I'm going to break it down. Asking for that advice helps you make better decisions. Asking what our decision would be and crowdsourcing that amongst the rest of us, all that's going to do is give you multiple different answers, lead to more confusion, and I don't understand how it helps anybody. And this idea that we need to be there to be more personable, to help you specifically for your league in a start sit, I just struggle with, because across 12 leagues, Fensty, it takes me less than 5 to 7 minutes to set my lineups. And that's because I typically use the same guys I want to use each week. If I have a gut feeling, a tweak or something like that, an injury I have to navigate, fine, I pick and choose where I make my moments. And that's where having multiple leagues is fun, because I have that ability or flexibility. But there is no color by number sweet answer across the board. And I always find it funny when people are like, well, I'm looking for the better ceiling, the better upside. I don't even know what upside is. I'll call it ceiling. They may not. They may have the same ceiling. We may be looking at the same guy. Like, I love lemonade and I love Coca-Cola. But if you give me some lemons, I can't make Coca-Cola with lemons. I'll make you some badass lemonade. But that badass lemonade's going to be lemonade. It's not going to be Coca-Cola with a bunch of caffeine in it. That's just the reality.
Remember the Diet Coke with lemon back
my God.
years ago? The canned Diet Coke with lemon? How crazy was that?
Dude, the clear that was supposed to taste like cola. And
Crystal
we've
Pepsi,
done it all.
1990s. Yep. Yes, we have. Yep. So, Rich, we actually had some news that broke right before I came on, more than just my internet kind of breaking. Situs, he had surgery because of that, so he could be out for a few weeks here. Who ends up gaining more value here in the Arizona Cardinals now? Who's going to be getting more targets? Is it Michael Wilson now that's going to be getting about 4 or 5 more targets per game while he's out?
I think you're going to see Trey McBride be a vacuum volume hog. So I expect him to get a couple more looks, even though he's already getting a pile. I do expect Michael Wilson to be the biggest, gainer in all of this. Unfortunately, they just lost Zay Jones. I mean, if Zay Jones doesn't go down with that Achilles issue, Zay Jones is probably a sneaky streamer option for us. Getting 5-6 targets would be my guess. I'm sure Dortch sees a little bit of an increase. The problem is they're really hamstrung now at the position, because losing Harrison and Zay Jones basically consecutively over the same week. That's really going to limit, because they don't have a lot of depth back there. Maybe we see more 2 tight end sets. I don't know if that's likely. Maybe we see Michael Carter out there in the slot a little bit. I doubt that's the case. I'm sure Dortch will get some more work, but Michael Wilson's probably the biggest benefactor.
hanging out with Rich Maletto from fantasyguru.com. Rich, one more question to you, and then we're going to cut it a little bit early today because little interweb tafus here for everybody out there. RJ Harvey here. J.K. Dobbins is hurt. How do you feel? Working Grind's wondering that, and I was going to ask you that too. RJ Harvey could be walking into an opportunity here, but is it an ideal spot for him to be in? Do you think that he has a chance of hitting that double-digit mark when it comes to fantasy production if no Dobbins?
Man, I'm hoping. I don't know who else it would be, Finsty, because as slight-framed as Harvey is, he's the biggest back they got on the roster right now that's not on the practice squad, right? So I got to believe Harvey sees 12 to 15 touches, right? Sean Payton's going to use the other guys too. Like, that's just the frustrating part. Batty and McLaughlin and probably somebody that got signed off the couch is going to get some carries. But if we were ever going to get the RJ Harvey game, kind of like TreVeyon Henderson last week, this is the week, man. And I'm using them. If I was on the fence of using them as a flex, I'm all about, I'm going to try it. I prefer to see it, but with buys, injuries, everything else, give me Harvey over Bam Knight. Give me Harvey over Devin Singletary. Give me Harvey over Sean Tucker or Rashad White. Give me Harvey over any of the Cardinals backs. You know what I mean? Give me Jalen Warren over Harvey, but now we're in the same ballpark at least. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does make sense. And while we're still hanging in there, Rich, let me ask you this. Who are a few, as I always do, QBs and defenses to stream? Who are a couple of QBs that you like that could be out there on the wire? And then a couple of defenses, too, that you're streaming, which has always been something that I've pictured you an expert on.
So I apologize, Fincy. I didn't get to the defenses before I left.
How dare you?
I know, man. I really dropped the ball.
All right, what about just quarterbacks then? It's all good.
Can we also get to DOC and S question? Because I think that's a great question, by the way. Quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota. Jacoby Brissett has hit 20 points or more, or 19.5 in all 4 games he started. I know Marvin Harrison's not going to be there, but Marvin Harrison wasn't there for one of his games already. Give me Jacoby Brissett. You could do Winston. I'm fading Winston. I'd much rather go get Marcus Mariota this week against the Dolphins. I think he'll be good for 20 points. Look, if Sam Darnold is out there, he looked good last week and only put up 5 points. Sam Darnold's one that you could probably just hold. He's QB 16 on the year. That's one that's interesting, but he's owned in a ton of leagues. If CJ Stroud is out, give me some Davis Mills, man. I think Davis Mills has looked decent. Better than Stroud, I may say.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And Rich, thank you so much again, man, for hanging in there. Davis Mills there, the top performer last week. That was huge right there to see what he could do. And even with CJ Stroud out, those options pretty protected there with Davis Mills throwing the ball. At Fantasy Bosco, don't follow him on X, but make sure you catch his content at fantasyguru.com. Joins me every week for the football portion of Fantasy Sports Daily here. Rich, you wanted to answer one final question here, and that's the old strategy of, do you gameplay a little bit there when it comes to, do you feel that playing a quarterback here from Darkness, do you feel that playing a quarterback your opponent as a wide receiver of that team gives you an advantage in a way because it kind of can cancel things out a little bit in production that falls with you instead of against you totally?
I don't know that it's a real advantage because what happens is, let's say that receiver is leaned on. Let's say it's Marvin Harrison last week and getting 12 targets. Everything your quarterback does is capped by what the receiver does. Whereas you're almost cheering against your own quarterback because you want that receiver to struggle. So that means you kind of want your own quarterback to struggle. That said, I do think it brings an element of fun to the competition. So it really depends on what your angle is. Do you really think it's leverage that you can use? In my opinion, I don't. It does kind of inch your points up while their points maybe kind of pull away from you because the advantage is to the receiver if they're getting leaned on. The quarterback's great because he can use all the options. But if that one receiver you're playing against is guy getting fed the ball the whole time, you're sweating. So there is no advantage there. Now, if the targets are going to everybody but that guy, man, it's a great advantage. But I would argue that's the same advantage whether you played him or didn't play him then, right? Because those points aren't going to your opponent. So for me, it's more of, do I want to action on this game? For me, it more comes down to, is it a Monday night, Sunday night player versus is their receiver, my opponent's got my receiver in their lineup, if that makes sense.
He is Rich Maletto, not only does NASCAR, but also not only does NFL, but also does our racing coverage too on the site. I'm Justin Fensterman. I'm going to have our NBA write-up up a little bit later on. I'll have NBA bets up in our betting Discord channel that we have, the DFS NBA Discord channel and the NBA betting Discord channel. And then watch along Wednesday tonight, 7:15 p.m. Eastern. I'll be in the Discord the entire time in the DFS NBA Discord until 9 p.m. Eastern. From Maletto, I'm Justin Fensterman.